what was set for me. All growing up, they always told me this was going to happen, or I was going to be this, and I had my 5-year plan set up, but I didn't see it coming. Have you ever just been sitting around one day and got the news? You were healthy yesterday, today you're not. Have you ever been and been surrounded by a relationship that you thought was forever, and now you look around and it's just kind of crumbling down? I mean, way to kind of hold it together. Have you ever been just been, and just kind of everything flowing easy, no big ups and downs, and then all of a sudden it felt like the rug pulled out from underneath you. In whatever situation, that's Mephibosheth. I want you to get that attitude. I want you to think as Mephibosheth would have been thinking. Even at 5, because remember, he got there and then he grew up. So that whole time that he's out there, he's still having this thought, this thinking about, well, this wasn't supposed to be as it was going to be. Imagine, just 5 years old. I'm just playing in the courtyard, having a good time. Maybe I'm eating a grasshopper or two. I don't know. And along come, somebody whisks me away. There's pandemonium. Just put yourself in that. Pandemonium, man. The entire family of Saul is running to get out of there. They're yelling, David's coming, David's coming. But now, hold on. Mephibosheth. Wait a minute. Mephibosheth. You're Jonathan's son. Did anybody just think that for just a minute? Who's Jonathan? Jonathan is David's best friend. They grew up together. I mean, it said Jonathan was all, and actually in the Bible, there's a story where David and Jonathan are sitting together, and Jonathan was there when David got anointed king, and a few days later, Jonathan's pretty smart. He knows he's supposed to be king, and yet David just got anointed king. So Jonathan says, hey, David, buddy, old pal, when you take over, because Jonathan believed it was going to happen, when you take over, would you remember my family? Would you take care of us? David's like, heck yeah, man. Totally. I mean, you're in like Flynn. No matter what's going on, you're there. You're top. So get this. To Mephibosheth, the name David, I think probably even at 5, he would have been maybe crazy Uncle David. Right? I mean, this is the same David Goliath, that bunch. Same story. So even if Mephibosheth would have heard the story. Isla's 2, okay? So we have crazy Uncle Dave, okay? Dave works over at Isla's house, or whatever, and she'll hear noises outside, and she'll go, Dave's here, right? At 2. So we know at 5 it's possible that this guy's name. Your dad is always hanging with him. He's the one that brings you stuff that dad won't let you have, right? Things like that are going on. So Mephibosheth sitting here. Daddy's dead. Granddad's dead. Here's that stuff. May not comprehend death, but David's coming. Oh, good. Uncle Dave's coming. But the nurse says, no, we got to go. And football carries him almost without incident. And drops him. It breaks his legs. Now, not a lot of anything going on back there as far as broken leg kids and stuff like that. But just think what that mind's doing. Even at 5, man, the mind is just crazy. What's up? This hurts. I was having a good time. Where's Uncle David? They said Uncle David was coming. Now he's not here, and now I'm gone. And man, what's up? So they go. David comes in, he does, and he assumes power. And here Mephibosheth is. I'm trying to find the name of is it actually out there? The name of the town he went to. I'm not following my notes, so if you're wondering what. We'll see it in a minute. All right, so let's fast forward. So David's there. Mephibosheth's growing up. Lodamar. That's it, Lodamar. So he's growing up in a place called Lodamar. David comes, this is in 2 Samuel chapter 9. So it's not chronological. If you're reading Samuel and you're trying to follow along, it's kind of weird. It's not chronological. We don't know exactly how many years have passed between Mephibosheth being 5 and being dropped and breaking his legs and running out to Lodamar until now, when David's sitting around and he asked this question. And we don't know why he even started to ask this question. We do know some things have happened, and we know some years have passed, and we know he's conquered some things, but just all of a sudden he stops. He goes, is there anyone still left of the house of Saul to whom I can show kindness for Jonathan's sake? Maybe it's the anniversary of Saul and Jonathan's death. Maybe. I don't know. But there was a servant. A servant was left, and he was actually over a household of servants that actually got to stay. So what happened was David, when he got to Jerusalem, he didn't kill off the monarchy. He didn't kill off everybody. He actually employed them all. He was honoring his agreement with Jonathan the whole time. And yet he still asked this question, is there anybody left? Is there anybody else? And I think maybe he's saying, is there anybody I haven't honored that I need to? Anybody else? So there's a guy named Ziba left. And they go, yeah, there's the Ziba guy. He used to serve Saul. He would probably know if there's a household member. So bring him. So they bring him in, and he says, you Ziba, at your service, King David. Not Uncle David, King David. So David says, is there no one still alive from the house of Saul to whom I can show God's kindness? And Ziba just kind of passes along, and he says, there's still a son of Jonathan, but he's lame in both feet. I mean, that would be the context of how he would say it. There's a kid. It would be Saul's grandson, Jonathan's son, but he's crippled, lame in both feet. You don't want anything to do with him. He's useless, worthless, done. I mean, there's really no... Honestly, David, I don't even know why we're talking about him. I mean, you asked the question, so I told you, but he's lame. I mean, you know how lame people are treated in the Bible. Worthless. I mean, they can't work. They can't, so that people just write them off. We know in context of the Bible, when Jesus comes along, he doesn't do that. He doesn't write anybody off. So we see this heart of David, and let's keep going. David says, where is he? David says, well, he's at the house of Machir, son of Amiel, in Lodamar. Now, Lodamar actually means place of no bread. So, see, once again, yeah, they're gluten-free. I don't know why it's called gluten-free. House of no bread. So how would you like that? But the reason it calls that is because it's desolate. Nothing grows there. I mean, it's just out in the desert. It's just this little village, and that's where they hid Mephibosheth at. They just didn't want him to die, but they knew he wasn't going to, because he was lame, they had no clue, anything, no desire that he was going to come back. So he's just out there in the in the place of no bread, desolate place, forgotten place, whatever. And there he is. And David says, what's David saying? Verse 5. So King David had him brought from Lodamar, house of Machir, son of Amiel. So David's like, go get him. Bring him over. I want to talk to him. Hold on. So, not bad enough. Mephibosheth is sitting in Lodamar. He's crippled, lame, probably begging. He's probably not, there's no lie. He's just got his, kind of settled in. This is just where it is. This is what's going on. I'm just going to deal with it. And then he does. He's living. Boom! Somebody runs into Lodamar and says, Mephibosheth, David wants to see you. And think about it. Uncle David, who he now hasn't seen in a while, thought he was coming to, he was going to be good buddies with, or he's going to rescue him, whatever. He excited to see, doesn't show up. Now told stories that, listen, all of Saul's family's probably dead. And honestly, there was probably stories he said around, and the nurse or somebody else would have said, look, I'm sure they're looking for you. I mean, you're like one of the last survivors of Saul. And David, you see how he kills everybody? You see how everybody he goes after, he wins? You see how there's nobody ever survives whenever David decides to conquer? That's the stories of David. So here's Mephibosheth. This is my life. I'll deal with it. Now gets summoned to the palace. Wow. Okay. I'll go. But I can just see him being carried in, okay, with his head hung low, just like this, waiting at any, and then probably sat in front of David. They bring him, they sit him, and he probably just stays there like this, waiting for the sword to chop off his head. I mean, it wasn't like they're going to talk. And it wasn't like they were going to, like, hey, I give you a couple options here. No, in his mind, he's got to be thinking, this is it. Just get it over with, man. Okay, I didn't think so. What happens? Verse 6. When Mephibosheth, son of Jonathan, son of Saul, came to David, he bowed down to pay him homage. Right? Hey, Mephibosheth, David says. You little Mephibosheth. It's been so long. And he says, at your service. Keep going. Man, don't be afraid. Look up. Look up. Don't be afraid. I'm going to show you kindness for the sake of your father, Jonathan. Man, we were so close. I loved your daddy so much. And because of him, I love you. I'll restore to you, check this. I'll restore to you all the land that belonged to your grandfather Saul, and you'll always eat at my table. What? I mean, he wasn't looking up. He's looking up now. What? Okay, remember, King Saul, he didn't have a garden over in the corner. King Saul had a whole bunch of stuff. And a whole bunch of peoples. And a whole bunch of just land and prosperity and gold and riches. And what? And not only that, you yourself, you're eating at my table. This is your home. You're going to hang out with me. All this, not only am I giving you what Saul had, but all this, you can just count as yours, too. You got pretty much the run of the place. What's the next verse? Now down says, what is your servant that you notice a dead dog like me? See, that's the common theme among somebody crippled like that. Just as worthless as a dead dog. And that's Mephibosheth's view of himself. Have you ever put yourself in spiritual exile like in Lodamar and said, God's mad at me, God's going to get me, I didn't do well, or I did this, I don't deserve to even talk to him. I know he's not hearing my prayers. I know there's this, there's that. I know God's thinking this or that. Have you ever done that? Have you ever put yourself in that? Have you ever thought, you might not have said dead dog, because we got even the lowest of self-esteem people have a little more than that. Have you ever thought that low of yourself? That you weren't deserving of anything? That's where Mephibosheth is at in his mind. Verse 9. Then the king summoned Ziba, because it gets better. I like it. Saul's steward, one of Saul's chief guys whenever Saul was alive. And he said, I've given your master's grandson everything that belonged to Saul and his family. And I believe there was probably a short pause at this moment for Ziba to get back up. You did what? Wait a minute. I happen to know everything Saul had. I was in charge of it. You gave it to him? Yeah, I gave it to him. Not only that, but now Ziba, you and your sons and all your servants, there's actually 35 of them, are going to farm the land for him, bring in the crops so that your master's grandson may be provided for. And Mephibosheth, son of your master, or grandson of your master, will always eat at my table. You're going to go care for Mephibosheth's now land, property, belongings, cattle, animals. You're going to raise his crops. You're going to sell his crops. And you're going to bring him the money while he sits at my table. You good with that? And what Ziba say? Go ahead. What Ziba says something, doesn't he? Huh? Okay. Okay. That's what you want. I mean, nobody crossed David, right? I mean, it's not like Ziba's like, oh, I was waiting for this. This is awesome. I get to work for a lame guy who's not ever going to do anything for himself. No, he just says to David, whatever you want, I'll do it. So check that, right? You might want to write this last one down. So Mephibosheth ate at David's table like one of the king's sons. Now what that means is all the freaking time. He was never not at the king's table. That's what he means. It wasn't like sometimes he came into the palace and reminded people, hey Dave, thanks for letting me, kind of join in whenever I wanted. No, every day, every meal, he was at the table. Anybody want to yell, so what yet? So what? So what? That was your cue. So what? So what? What's this got to do with me? Well, this is really cool. Now, so hold on, track with me. And if you're going to write something down, you're going to need to write fast. No, just let me. I had 20 pages of notes, okay? I'm still at page 6, but in notes, I'm probably really far away. Because I want to make sure I get these right. Okay, right here. Yeah, so we're getting there. Now, aside from so what kind of energy do you get when you hear that story? I mean, Mephibosheth, exiled, left to die, dead dog in people's eyes, gets brought in, gets to sit at the king's table. It's all of granddad's stuff. Man, it's like that call of like, hey, granddad died. I'm really sad. He was a billionaire. It's all yours. Right? Just like that. You get excited with that, right? Yes, you do. Have you ever watched The Voice? Anybody ever watch The Voice? You know when you watch the pre-stories? And it's always somebody from a really bad neighborhood with only one parent, and they just can't catch a break, and then they sing, and like all three chairs, and you're like in the table, and you're like, so yes. I mean, they still suck singing probably, but you're like, that's so awesome. That's so pretty. Right? Or you watch, there's another show, and it's a story of it's a single mom, a dad died. Very tragic. But this team of like 1,000 people swoop in, and they make their little shanty into a mansion. And then Ty yells, move that bus! And as the bus goes away, you're like, and you start crying, right? Like, oh my God, I can't believe I did all that. Right? It's in your DNA. It really is. Don't lie to me. You know you're there. You tear up. Anybody that doesn't tear up, you're lying. You're a liar. No. You got to be cold-hearted not to cry at those things. But that's built into us. We're like that. Okay? Now, I tell you all that to swing you forward. So, because Mephibosheth is a true story in the Old Testament. However, you're Mephibosheth. Did you know that in the Bible? Every story in the Bible is about Jesus and redeeming his people. And it's called typecasting. So every story in the Old Testament has a typecast that you can find yourself in, or Jesus in, or Christ, the Holy Spirit in. You always see God in them, but one of those things. So in this story, you're Mephibosheth. Okay? So track with me, and I'll give you, here's number one. Mephibosheth was fallen and broken. Now, you may or may not be physically broken, but you are spiritually broken. Now, at our church, we believe we're all physically broken as well in some way, or maybe emotionally broken, okay? And we carry that garbage forward. So we carry it with us. Now, Mephibosheth, physically broken, fallen, and desolate or hidden away. And you felt that way, right? So think about yourself prior to meeting God, or if you don't know God today, you're there. You're broken, you're sitting there, and you're like, this is life, this is it, surely there's more. That's Mephibosheth. Second, Mephibosheth was pursued by the king. You were pursued by the king. If you're sitting here today and you are what you call, or what we call, a Christian, meaning you believe that Christ died for you, rose again, and that's your pathway to God. That's the Christian life. If you're there, you didn't get there by any other means but by God pursuing you. The Bible says he's like a hound dog. Like, you know how a hound dog, he gets your scent, he does not let up. So you, on the other side of accepting Christ, when you look back, you understand that there is absolutely zero chance you are going to get out of his pursuit. Okay? You understand that. Now, if you don't know God, you're sitting here like, I'm out of his pursuit. I got him. I ain't got nothing to do with this stuff. Y'all are crazy. I agree. And from your perspective, I get it. But from my perspective, I had no choice. You have a choice. I didn't. You do. I didn't. Okay? That's Mephibosheth. He was pursued. Had no choice but to come. No choice but to come to the king. You were pursued by the ultimate, the King of Kings. And you were brought. Okay, because that number 3 is pretty cool. Because the king wants to grant you everything that belongs to the king. Get that. So you tend to put yourself in this, oh, woe is me garbage. I'm not worthy, I'm not good, I'm not this, I'm not that. And yet you were pursued by a king who granted you everything responsible or belonging to the king. Gave you it all. Basically said, when you roll up in here, act like you're mine. Basically, to you, Christians, when you roll up out of bed, act like you're mine. Everything I've got, yours. Everything you've got is because I gave it to you. Know this. You were pursued and grabbed by the king. John chapter 3, verse 17 says that God sent his son not to condemn, but to redeem, to give, to pass on. You see, the world was expecting God to send somebody to annihilate the world, and yet the unlikely thing happened that Jesus came along and redeems the world. That's pretty unlikely. And yet you and I sit around here like, oh, that's what it's supposed to be. No. You were, in your own mind, in your own self-description, unworthy. And yet God came along and says, no, I'm pursuing you. You are worthy, not based on who you are, but based on who I am. That's pretty cool. Just like Mephibosheth. And third, the king's table covers your sin. Now hold just a minute. Mephibosheth was lame, physically broken, and all. You were spiritually broken and all. You brought everything. When the king pursued you and beckoned you to come to him, you brought all of that with you, okay? We've talked about the new man. We've talked about all that stuff in our church here. But listen, you're still, just think of it this way. You were ugly when he found you. He did not give you a nose job. You're still ugly. Right? You're still a poor, wretched, unworthy person before he brought you to him. You're still poor, wretched, and unworthy. Okay? In your own right. But get this. Mephibosheth sat at the king's table. The king did not have chairs. They didn't sit in chairs. Where did Mephibosheth sit? On the floor. No, he sat on the floor. He sat on the floor just like everybody else sat on the floor. And what does the table do to those lower extremities of someone sitting on the float. Covers them up. It covers them up. So everybody that walked in the room saw Mephibosheth sitting at the king's table, and all they saw was one of the king's dudes. They didn't see what was wrong with Mephibosheth because the table covered it up. Along comes God to your life. He brings you forward. He covers it up. Now, when the world looks at you, you're not supposed to be known by what's wrong with you. It's still there. You realize it. You know it's there. But you're banking on that thing to cover it up. You're banking on your sin to be covered up. That God doesn't see it. That people don't see you for who you are. They see you for whose you are. Just like that happened. Now, you're supposed to live as if you're always, 100% of the time, under that table. Not just when you feel like it. Not just when you walk up into church going, oh yeah, I belong here. Mm-hmm. Not all, but I'm saying all the time. When you roll up out of the bed, I am one of His. And everything I am is looked upon as His. So when you walk around with your lips stuck out because you're upset about who you are, one of two things are going on. You've forgotten whose you are, or two, you don't think that table's big enough to cover your stuff. And I'm telling you, both of them are wrong. Wrong. Because there ain't nothing that you've got going on in your life that God didn't conquer. That God doesn't cover up with who He is. That God doesn't say, hey, I know what's under the table and I don't care. You sit there like you're mine. You sit there like everything I've done for you fixes it all, because it does. And you walk around this planet like you own the place. Worthy of who I am. Not who you are, but worthy of who I am and what I've given you. Man, do you understand? See, I don't think we get it. I don't think we understand what God gave us. I think we celebrate that He gave us His Son. I think theologically we understand that, hey, we get to go to heaven. But we don't understand that every single freaking day that we're supposed to understand and know and transpire, our lives are supposed to show that we believe it. That we're supposed to be able to say, this thing covers me. I am His. And nothing this world does is going to mess me up. Nothing this world takes away is going to change that fact. I am His. You are His. And if you're sitting here today and you're not His, you're like, I ain't been His. Guess what? Maybe He's chasing you. Maybe just you being here today is Him going, I'm going to get you. Not in a bad way, okay? We don't believe God does it in a bad way. He'd be like, you supposed to be here today. You're supposed to hear this today. Or God's going there, He's saying to you, I've been telling you this the whole time. This is what you've been looking for. I mean, He might say something like, that guy up there, he's a genius. He probably won't say that. Because if he did, my wife would argue with him. For sure. So Mephibosheth. Oh, I wanted to tell you what his name was. His name used to be Malbaal, not Malbel. Malbaal, meaning against Baal. So he was born, and his family named him that he was going to conquer Baal. Mephibosheth means crap. No, it kind of sounds like that. Oh, come on. Google that. And intern, you're supposed to be faster than that. I wrote it down, but I can't find it. Because I want you to know. What does Mephibosheth mean? That'd be a good thing for Jeopardy. Yeah, you go. Mouth of shame. Mouth of shame. Yeah. That's what Mephibosheth lived. That's you, okay? Mouth of shame. Before God gets a hold of you, notice, get this. David didn't change his name back. He's still physically mouth of shame. From the mouth of shame. Shameful. You see, what God does inside of us is only able to transpire out of us when we allow it to happen. Because left to our own, this outside is still shameful. If you allow the world to see you, they're going to think shameful, unworthy, probably hypocritical. But if you allow God to come out, the shameful part is kind of there, and they look at you and they go, man, I get it. I get it. You're a lot like me, but man, there's something different. You see, if God were to change you completely, no one could relate to you. If they couldn't see that you've still got your brokenness, that you've still got your issues, but for some reason, this God that you claim to serve seems to help you get through the day with them, there would be nothing for them to get. If you just all of a sudden popped out of bed and was like, no problems here, I'm a good guy, they would be like, kill you. Right? They couldn't relate to that. They'd be like, I can't get there from where I am. I see no path to have your excitement. You see no path to have your energy. I have no path to see any of that. But you represent. You're still you. And that's designed that way. That you're still you, yet God chose you and God redeemed you and God made you worthy based on His stuff. And that's something the world can yearn for and be eager to get a hold of. Because they can say, I don't see the pathway. And you can say, me neither, because I'm not the pathway. But I can show you who is. And you're able to hand it off. And then a couple of days later, they're able to look back in their life and go, I had no choice. I had no choice. Thought I had a choice, but I had no choice. So Mephibosheth, how are you going to live your life? Are you going to live it broken? Are you going to show the world all your problems with no solution? Or are you the world going to see your problems with your covered solution? Still there, very evident. It didn't take long for people to understand that Mephibosheth was still lame, but still one of the kings. You going to live that way? Newsflash, it's your choice. There's no magical mystic powder I get to spray on you so that you walk out of here and you're like, I'm living for God now. No, every day you got to wake up and decide, today I'm living for God. The next day, today I'm living for God. Next hour, I'm living for God. I choose to not live in my broken circumstances. I choose to allow them to be there and still have God cover them. That's what I'm going to choose. That's going to be my life story. Or as Casting Crowns would say, my life song. Stand with me and let's go. Before I pray for you, let me tell you that we've got, so dinner is 5:30 Wednesday night in this room right back here, okay? Bible study after that at 6:15, so if you want to come and join. While you're in town, I didn't even ask this morning, who's on vacation? That's a month or less, kind of a fortnight week. Cool stuff, good stuff. So the sheet in front of you that's white, that's for you to fill out, take back to the coffee shop. We've got these cool little, I think, floating keychains right now. We're getting new things coming. That's the intern. She's found cool stuff. So we're going to new stuff coming, but so everybody, if you haven't got one of the floaty keychains, everybody can have one. It's not like just for new people. So if you don't have one, get one. It's got our name on it. It's pretty cool. And then if you're here, like you're here a lot, you just moved into town and you're like, well, I've been looking for a church home for about 6 months. Well, hey, luckily we took the cloaking device off of ours today and you found us. you want to be part of us, the orange color slips for that, so you can get more information about the church and what's going on for here. But while everybody's in town, you're part of our family and we want you to be here. So free meal, Wednesday night, 5:30, Bible study, 6:15 on Wednesday. And everything else that's in the bulletin, we want you to be a part of. Don't forget, pray for these youth. And really, when you remember to pray, and this is how I test you. When you remember to pray for the youth, text me or email me that you prayed for them. And every night when we group up for our quick little devotion after all the other stuff they do that day, I'm going to read those to them. And I'm going to say, this guy prayed for you. This lady prayed for you. Each day. So if you're committed to do that, you got to commit to tell me so that I can tell them. All right? Scared to death? What is that? I mean, some of you probably spend thousands of words on Twitter and Facebook a day. We're talking about one more entry. I prayed for y'all today. Good enough. Good stuff? Anything else? Stacy. Oh, wait a minute. Do not take the offering out of the basket. You've read about our offering baskets. If you're wondering why we didn't pass the plate, look in your bulletin, and it will tell you why we don't pass a plate here at Beach Baptist. That's all I got to say about that. Stacy, would you pray for us?